Don't do it. Don't do it. Or do it. I don't know. Make up your own mind. Hey, if you're thinking about moving to New Braunfels, Texas, all right, and that's why you're on this channel, because this is all about New Braunfels, Texas, right? If you're thinking about moving here, today I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you should not move to New Braunfels, Texas, and we're getting started right now. Hey guys, it's Matt with Living in New Braunfels, Texas and the New Home Realty Group. Today we're talking about 10 reasons why you should not move to New Braunfels, Texas. These are 10 things you need to know before moving here, because maybe after hearing these, you'll decide that New Braunfels is not the right place for you. All right, no particular order or anything, but starting with the first thing, I'm gonna get it out of the way. I don't like talking politics really, but I'm gonna let you know New Braunfels is fairly conservative, all right? It's not really liberal, like its hippie sister up to the north in Austin. All right, Austin, Texas is my least favorite California city, but yeah, it's still pretty conservative over here. So if you don't want to be in a place that's very conservative, then don't move here. All right, they still have their conservative values. They primarily vote Republican. Just letting you know, okay? Just letting you know. So if you can't handle that, then maybe it's not for you. All right, let's get to the next one. The next one is a lot of people have been moving here, okay, but the infrastructure is not keeping up, and it's so annoying. They're always doing construction on the highways, on the city roads, and the traffic congestion is just kind of getting worse because city planners, for some reason, didn't have the forethought of seeing like, hey, years ago, like, oh my gosh, New Braunfels is growing quite a bit. We should get ahead of this, or maybe we should build this infrastructure before we grow. Maybe have some really wide streets when the town is a little bit smaller. Nope, they didn't do that, okay, for whatever reason. So the infrastructure is not always keeping up with the growth. And we've had like a little bit of overcrowding in some schools, so they have to build new schools. But I can understand why, hey, we can't always build new schools when we don't need them quite yet, so that's gonna happen. But yeah, it's just aggravating, and people complain about the growth here, all right? But they're the same ones that just moved here a few years ago. So they just move here and they're like, oh my gosh, don't move here. It wasn't this crowded whenever I moved here 5 years ago. Shut up. You're part of the problem that you're complaining about. So just stop. But yeah, infrastructure is not keeping up with the growth that we have. And with that growth, the traffic is getting worse. It's not horrible, okay? Don't get me wrong. It's not Houston, all right? We don't have Houston traffic. We don't have Austin traffic. Austin traffic's horrible, especially on 35. It's not like that, okay? It's not even like San Antonio. But when we're used to not having to sit through a light, you know, through like 4 or 5 cycles, and now you do, then yeah, it can be kind of aggravating. But it's still not as bad, like I said, as some other major cities, but it is getting worse. But with growth, that happens. So I don't know. You take the good with the bad, and you just kind of have to plan accordingly sometimes. But yeah, just give you, just know though, traffic is getting more congested. It is getting worse. It's not horrible, like I said, but it's there. Hey guys, it's Matt with Living in New Braunfels, Texas and the New Home Realty Group. Hope you're enjoying this video about why you should not move to New Braunfels, or maybe why you wouldn't if you can't handle these facts. But if you are thinking about it, get a hold of me. All the contact information is down in the description below. Text and email are usually the easiest ones. So if you are, get a hold of me, be able to help you out like we've helped dozens of others. All right, sorry for the interruption. Back to the video. All right, New Braunfels does get hot. We're going to be starting to enter the summer season here pretty soon, and it gets freaking hot here. It's not as humid, say, as over in Houston. Okay, Houston is, or even at the coast, but it does get hot, and it is humid. So you're outside and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I move here? And then you look around and you're like, oh yeah, that's why I moved here. But yeah, it does get hot here. So if you can't handle the heat, then don't step into this kitchen. Like, we're gonna have some times where during the summer, we've got 30 plus days of over 100 degrees. It's gonna happen, okay? Nothing we can do about it. You'll adapt to it if you think you can handle it. Other people have, us that have grown up in Texas, we're kind of used to it. So it's not a big deal to us. We still don't like it. We crank up our ACs. Like, one of the best inventions that's ever been is remote start on a vehicle. Okay, so I will never own another vehicle that doesn't have remote start. So I can turn it on like 10 minutes ahead of time before I head outside. And if it'll turn on the cooled seats beforehand too, that's an even bigger plus. But oh my gosh. And you also need that cold remote start sometimes for the next one. It gets cold. Yes, in the winter, we've had some cold here. It's hit or miss. It's hit or miss, honestly. Like over the last few years, we've had some winters where we had like a hard freeze and we got snow. We had Snowmageddon here a few years ago. And it sucked, and we were locked in and closed down and shut down and everything for a few days because everybody's kind of like snowed into their house. And the TxDOT, the Texas Department of Transportation, they don't have the resources and everything to go out and make the roads ready and whatnot, and snow plows or anything. So that was kind of a once in a lifetime thing. But I know this past winter we also had a hard freeze, and there were a lot of like trees that fell, lost their limbs. And yeah, it can get cold. All right. Not every single winter, okay? Not every single one, but it will get cold here sometimes. It get more cold than what we're used to. So if you hear us complaining about it, hey, we're used to the warm weather. We're used to great weather. We're used to like, over 260 days of sunshine. We're not used to like the cold. We're not built for it. We don't have the clothes for it. So, but yeah, just keep in mind it will get cold here sometimes. And touching on weather, New Braunfels is prone to flooding, okay? So the biggest problem is going to be around the river areas. So if you're going to buy a house along the Guadalupe or along the Comal River, expect flooding, all right? Anywhere else in town, it's not, your house isn't going to be in danger of flooding or anything like that. Check the FEMA maps, check the flood zones, but you're also going to see that in those maps that primarily where you're going to be prone to flooding and you've got to be aware is going to be around those rivers, okay, and the creeks. But we do a really good job at alerting people. We have sirens, when it comes to flash flooding. There are sirens that are throughout the city that'll go off, I mean, not throughout the whole city, but along the rivers. And the PD is great. I've been there, done that. And there's like an RV park that's under 35, and when we know it's going to be flooding, go knocking on the doors. Hey, gotta go, it's going to be flooding, get out. So I mean, we're not like running and like just escaping the waves and whatnot, the floods, but yeah, so it is prone to flooding, and some street flooding like along Business 35 or even on Landa Street. And if that happens, know some different ways to get around. All right. So if you only know one way, like to your kid's daycare, know the other way if there's a back way, because sometimes like that street might be flooded off and you just got to go around. You can't go through it. Okay. But yeah, it is prone to flooding. Just to let you know, give you a heads up. If you don't like the water, if you don't like the heat, you don't like the cold, I don't know what to tell you. And there's no major airport here. So we don't have a major airport. We have a municipal airport. Okay, we're like the owners of Buc-ee's and some other places, CAP, they'll fly into, and private planes and whatnot. But there's no major airport in New Braunfels. But that's not uncommon, okay? So maybe it's not a big, killer for you because we've got, Austin International Airport just north of us, San Antonio International Airport just south of us. But just to let you know, if you need one within like 15 or 20 minutes, there's not one here, okay? Another thing to keep in mind, there's a lot of tourists that come in during the summer, okay? So before we talk about when I first moved here and was working for the police department, and honestly, that's one of the reasons that kind of sets me apart from other realtors is working for the police department. I know the city like the back of my hand. Anyway, we were around 50,000 at the time, and then our population would go to about 100,000 during any summer weekend. But now we're at 100,000, and so now it goes like to 130 to 150,000 on a tourist weekend, during the summer, because between Memorial Day and Labor Day, it's tubing season, okay? And with Schlitterbahn, families come in from all over. Like when I was a kid, we used to drive up here and go to Schlitterbahn. There's a lot of tourists, and so weekends during the summer in town kind of suck, okay? Stay away from green, all right? Stay away from the river areas unless you just want to be sitting in some really bad traffic. But the locals, people that have been here for a long time, they know what to do. All right. If you don't, then you just kind of want to avoid those areas. But just know it's a very, very big tourist area. I mean, just Green itself gets over 1 million visitors a year. So if you can't handle that, if you don't want tourists, a lot of tourists, invading your city, then maybe Seguin's going to be a better option for you. It's still close to New Braunfels, just south of us, all right, and still quieter and doesn't have all the tourist attractions that New Braunfels does. But yes, we do have a lot of tourists. Another reason, number 9, it's not as cheap as it used to be, okay? Used to, like I've touched on it in other videos, like my first house was a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, or no, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, brand new corner lot, and it was $166,000. And then the next one that I built like 7 years later, $245,000, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and now it's insane. You're looking at $400,000 or so. You can still find some in the 3s, but here a few years ago, and it's everywhere. Here a few years ago, you could find one that was below 200,000 like all day, but now forget it. You're kind of going to find anything under 200,000. You're lucky to find anything under 300,000. So yeah, I mean the cost of living has gone up, especially the cost of houses, but that's everywhere. So it's not as cheap. Like I had one couple that moved here from California because they wanted to be homeowners, and they bought at the right time. It was the end of 2020 before everything started getting super crazy, and they were able to get a house that was like 3,000 square feet or so for right around $300,000. It was resale, but I mean they got a lot of house for their money now. Man, hey, if you are watching, if you want to sell, let me know. But yeah, I mean, just the cost of living, the cost of everything has kind of gone up, but that's just everywhere. It's a little bit lower down in Seguin. Touching on Seguin again, just south of us. I've done videos on that, so go check out that playlist, but not as cheap as it used to be. All right, and the last reason why you might not want to move here is because New Braunfels is growing, okay? It's growing. That's why I have this channel. I have this channel to kind of, capture that growth. There's a lot of people moving here. That's why you're watching. That's why you're watching this far, is because New Braunfels is growing. And if you want somewhere to be, crickets and quiet and out in the country, there's stuff around New Braunfels that we can find you. But just know New Braunfels is growing like crazy. It's like over 4,000 people are moving here every single year. When I first moved here in 2009, it was just under 50,000. I think in the 2010 census is whenever we hit, like 53, 54,000. It was great. And now we're at like 100,000, just over 100,000. So in the last 13 years, it's doubled in population. So we're going to be at 200,000 in another 13 years. I don't know. Hopefully we don't have enough, room to grow that much, at least not in the city limits. Maybe out in the county, there's new like master plan communities are going up all the time. There's a new one by South Star that's going up on the north end of town, or kind of northeast, up north 35 north. There's Mindy that's going in, and that's going to be a huge master plan community, but those are still out in the county right now. They're not in the city limits, but it's still New Braunfels. Yeah, there's been a lot of growth. You're gonna have politicians that are gonna say, "Oh, I'm gonna do everything I can to slow down the growth." Stop. Come on, those are empty promises. What are you gonna do? Okay, it's a free market society. It's capitalism. If they can buy the land and they get it approved for permits and everything, and they're gonna grow, and the people are gonna move here. If you build it, they will come. And they've been building like crazy around here. Farmers and ranchers selling off land, because it's more valuable to them selling it off than they can getting money from the cattle and from the crops. So yeah, it's inevitable. Okay, we're still going to have more growth, whether we double in the next 10 years, 13 years. Hopefully not. That's a lot to keep up with, but people are still going to move here, and it's still growing. Yeah, so if that's not something you can handle, then maybe New Braunfels isn't right for you. I don't know, but maybe everything that I talked about is right for you, and you do love it, and you're like, oh, nope, that's fine with me. And if that's you, get a hold of me. All the contact information is down below. We'll be able to help you out like we've helped dozens of others. Until next time, y'all take care. See you in the next video.